Welcome back, everybody, to Resurrecting Faith. I'm Casey with a new microphone, and I can't see my Bible.
And I'm Andrew. Apparently, nobody can hear me, so I don't even know why I'm on this thing.
I can hear you.
Okay.
God hears you. All right. So, well, first of all, we are going to cover the first, 8 chapters of Luke today.
Yeah.
And just talk about some of the things that we found interesting. And we were actually supposed to read Matthew, but that's my bad because I'm actually doing a women's class where we're going through Luke right now. And when asked which one we were reading, I said Luke. So that's what we did. But it was supposed to be Matthew. So we'll do Luke and then we'll do Matthew. It's not like we're... What's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
We're not experts in this field, so
No.
we're just doing the thing. Anyway, how was your week, Andrew? I can't do this.
It was good there.
I can't do this. I can't do it. I can't see anything. I can't move. How do I get this off? Minor meltdown. I'll start again in a second.
Lefty Lucy.
That's what I'm doing, I think.
Okay.
All right. Oh, nope. Oh, so close. Okay. Good riddance. Oh, that's so much better. Take yours off, too. I know.
This is a family show. I'm not going to take it out.
It's not really a family show. That's a people show.
I thought you said it was better with this thing.
Yeah, well, I lied. Or I didn't lie. Oh, that noise you're making is not better.
Okay. Is that better?
Oh, it's so much better. That thing is annoying. Okay, and I can't see anything with it on.
All right.
Okay, and we're back. So how was your week, Andrew?
It was good. We went to the show, Forrest Frank show.
Forrest Frank show. It was so cute. I loved it. That was honestly like the best concert that I've ever been to. I was so impressed with him.
No, I agree. It was excellent. Just the whole vibe. It was very, honestly, it was just like a big worship service.
Yeah.
You know?
At the end of the day, you just kind of realized it was like all worship, no sermon, but it was basically like going to church and just doing songs the entire time.
Well, yeah, I mean, there were praise songs, there was a prayer, testimony, right? But it was good. He was very engaged, had, kids up on stage, he came in the crowd, it was very just like respectful, and I don't know, it was a great show.
It was an early birthday present for Ethan, but I think it was actually a present for all of us because it was super fun. It was nice to see like all the families there and the kids there and even the college kids, like the massive amount of college kids that were there. Like to see so many young people of their own accord going to this concert was cool. Like I think he reaches people that like the Christian music industry hasn't reached in a different way. Like it's really cool to see. So I'm excited to hear his next album, which comes out May 9th. He's released a couple of singles that we've already been checking out, and they're pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's not your traditional, right? Like I can't remember the group that came on before him.
Something Evolution. Rhythm
Evolution? Is that? I don't. Sorry, but I'm just not familiar.
Motion?
I don't think no.
I don't know.
I'm just not that familiar with them, unfortunately. But they did a good job. But it's still very like that church vibe. Not to say that Forrest Frank isn't involved in the church or it's not a church, but it's just different. It reaches a different type of people, I think.
I think because it has that like R&B / kind of rap. I wouldn't say rap, R&B sound to him. Like that's something you don't hear as often and as well produced too. I think that's the key too. It's like you hear it every once in a while, but it's not very well produced. He does because he does his own,
right?
Because he produces his own music. Like, it's really well put together.
And not to say that other, worship songs or religious groups or individuals out there don't do a good job of producing their music or reaching the Christian community or outside the Christian community, but it's just a different. And it was nice to see. It was nice to be able to do something like that together, as a family. Because usually when you go to a show, right, you get a babysitter, like, and you go out and you do whatever. But it was nice to see, like, the kids and the families there, like you said. You all right?
I'm not. I know something's wrong with my mic. Anyway, no. I thought the funniest thing was, and that's what I brought up, was that, like, every concert I've ever been to has a line at the bar that is so long. You're like, ugh, do I even really want a beer that bad? Like, I don't want to wait in it. But, like, I walked by the bar on 3 separate occasions. The one in the lobby and the one on the club level. And there wasn't a single soul at the bar at this concert. And my poppy had a joke about that, like, if you want, how'd it go? Oh, if you want to have all your beer on a fishing trip, don't invite one Baptist, invite 2, because they won't drink around each other. And I was like, rude. But, I mean, maybe that had something to do with it. But I think, too, like, it was a family vibe. It wasn't a get drunk at a concert vibe, And looking around the room, it was really cool to see everybody with their hands up in the air. Like, because we had talked about that previously, that, like, you go to a concert and people are like, yeah, the whole time with their hands up in the air. But then when it comes to putting your hands up in church, everyone's like, I don't know about that.
Well,
and like, you're doing it there.
Right. Well, not only like you said, there's people, but you might, if you've never been to a church like that where they're putting their hands up, you might look at it weird. You might think that's weird, but then, like you say, you go to a show and you're like, wave your hands, like you just don't care. But so it's interesting, like, how even when we went to church this morning, people putting their hands in there, and like I didn't feel that, and I don't know. You
don't feel that same vibe to, like, put your hands in the air and do. Yeah, I know. I don't know what it is, because, like, it's the same music. I mean, it's not the same music, but it's.
Well, I mean, it's
worship.
Worship, yeah. So I don't know.
But concerts, it's like that's all you do.
Yeah.
Wave your hands back and forth. It was so cute. It was so fun. I'm glad we got to do that. I feel like there was something else that happened this week too, but I can't remember right now. Nope, I don't know. Oh, we took the class at church to become members today. Members. I don't know if they'll let me in the club, the cool club. I mean, I'm honest. I'm getting closer, I think, every day to being able to, like, fully embrace, but not quite there yet. So, I applied to be a member, but there's quite a bit of stuff that they ask you, and some of those questions, if I'm being honest, like, I don't fit the mold necessarily, but I think they're pretty good about bringing people in who don't fit the mold, so maybe we'll find out. Andrew's got no issue. The pastor recognized him because he's so tall.
Yeah, that's the only reason. Not because, I'm...
What?
I don't know.
Because you're what?
Because I'm not really outspoken and I'm not involved in the church that way, so the only reason people recognize me is because I'm all tall.
Well, use what God gave you, right?
Anyways. But yeah, I've never had to do a class, I don't think.
To become a member?
Yeah, usually it's like, hey, I want to join your church. Okay, cool.
Welcome, friend.
So.
You have a lot of expectations of us over there to become a member.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty large. I'm actually surprised that they don't have other, like, campuses, like smaller ones, because it's huge.
Don't they, though?
I think just on the campus, like, they have separate buildings, but, like, to have, like, other locations.
I think they get involved in other churches around town. Like they work side by side with other churches and stuff. But and then I think they do. I don't know. Anyway, but I did have a really good time Tuesday at my women's class too, because we kind of got into discussions after our study, which is in Luke. And everyone kind of went around the table and like told their testimony and where they're at, and it was kind of nice to see. And it's something that I've been trying to bring to light, like the first woman who speaks up says like, oh, my testimony is boring. It's not really exciting. I don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, tell me more. I want to hear about your boring testimony. I really do, because, I just feel like so many times we hear people say like, I had this heartfelt, emotional, God spoke to me testimony. And like, so then if you don't have that testimony, does that mean that your relationship is any less valid? Like, I know for one of the other women at the table, she mentioned that like she felt like she wasn't doing something right for so long because she didn't hear God talk to her, because she was waiting for that moment and it never happened. And she's like, so am I, I guess I'm a failure. I guess I can't be a Christian. And like, or I guess I can't have a relationship, or I don't have a relationship, or I'm doing something wrong. And I think it's important too for people to realize that like boring testimonies are cool too. Like, one of them's like, oh, I grew up in the church. My grandparents pretty much built this church. Like, I've just always been a Christian. And, like, that's cool, too. Because, I'm sure there's plenty of people who were born into a religion and they just never really gave it a second thought. And, like, they don't have an exciting testimony either. But that doesn't mean that it's any less valid. So.
Well, not only that, but people go through ups and downs all the time. Like, just because... people will go through hardships even as a Christian, even if you've been a Christian since 10 years old. Like, eventually you grow up and you have life experiences and you're already walking with God. Yeah. So you don't have like this epiphany all of a sudden, like, I need to be saved. You want to search, you would search out God, right? But you don't have like this whole transition of like, you have a testimony, but it's not like your typical, I was a drug addict, now I'm saved type of testimony. Like,
but most people aren't that, like most, maybe not most, but a lot of people don't have a testimony like that. They didn't go through things like that. And so a lot of times what gets highlighted is all of those people in the church that had this like big moment or big issue or big thing they overcame or whatever. But like a lot of people just have boring testimonies. And I think those are just as exciting, because mine's kind of boring.
Mine's boring too, I guess. I don't have,
Ethan's is going to be boring. He's believed in God his whole life. Like, he's not going to have some crazy testimony later in life. Like, he's just, I love God. Right on. Mm-hmm. So, I think, I don't know. I think it's cool. I thought it was a really cool experience to hear kind of what all of them had to say and, open up a little bit. Because we tend to have these classes and they're very, like, study oriented around the principles of everything that's happening, but like it's not necessarily a get to know you hour. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like getting to know everybody at the table, and that was nice. So
I think we still have, initially maybe our testimony isn't like crazy exciting, but to come back around, right, to fall out of the church and come back around, like that's a testimony. But I know what you're saying. In the men's group, I don't think we've delved in. No, actually, we did. The first night of the first series, we kind of went around the room.
Yeah. But anyway, that was my week. I still feel like there was something else I was going to talk about, but I don't remember what it was, so that's all right. So let's just talk about Luke. Did anything stand out to you in the book of Luke? Because I actually thought it was kind of dry for the first couple chapters. I was like,
whew. Well, it's just like, it's getting ready. Like, it talks about, there's the parallel of John and Jesus, and it's just kind of like the preface to what's happening.
I did think it was worth mentioning in chapter 2 when it does go into discussion of the birth of Jesus. Something that I learned that was kind of cool and I didn't realize is that, like, in those days, so it says even in chapter 2 in the beginning, it says, in those days a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that the whole empire should be registered. So kind of like for tax purposes, they had to be registered. And the first registration took place while, I don't know how to say that word, Quirinius was governing Syria. So everyone went to be registered, each to his own town. So Joseph and Mary were engaged to be married, and Mary was pregnant, but Joseph went to Nazareth because that was his hometown. So a lot of people didn't realize that, but like he was going there to register for Caesar's registration thing. And so, when they also say like, well, they were going to, but all the rooms were empty, it's because Caesar had issued this decree. So people were coming from all over to their hometown. And then, you also think of Jesus's birth as like this time where they were maybe all by themselves, like they were alone and they were lonely, but most likely everybody in the town was family. So like, it's a cool thing to think of. Like if he was coming back to his hometown, he was probably surrounded by tons of family. And the reason there was nowhere to stay is because everybody was in town.
Right.
So they probably weren't alone in that birth, so to speak. Because, you always think about like alone in a manger with animals and... Anyway, I thought that was cool. So what you think is cool?
No, that was pretty cool. Well, I guess what stood out to me was probably the parable of the sower.
Ooh, I have stuff on that, but go ahead.
I don't know where my notes start.
I think it's like chapter 5-ish, towards the end, middle, somewhere in there.
Well, no, about my notes.
Oh, yeah, I don't know where you put those. No problem.
I mean, I just made kind of like, I just wrote down like interesting things that I came across. Like, John, they thought that John was the Messiah. Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, they were supposedly cousins, or second cousins, I think is what, when I was doing some research on it, like Mary and, was it Elizabeth?
It was Mary's sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of cool. Like, the angel came down and spoke to both of them, and John's, Zechariah and Elizabeth, they were barren, they were older. So, and what I thought was cool, well, maybe not cool, but interesting, was because of Zechariah's like disbelief, he was sort of condemned that he couldn't speak until until John was born. So I was like, that's crazy. Like, because he's trying to point and like make signs to the people when they come, because he was in the tabernacle for a while, and when he came out, he was like trying to do charades, and but he was like forbidden to speak about it because of his disbelief. And then obviously when John was born, he was able to speak again. But yeah, it was, because in those times too, you're gonna name the child like with somebody's in the family. Mm-hmm. And they chose John because that's what the angel said to call him. So, so obviously same thing with Jesus, but
yeah, but John's mission was to prepare the people, or to prepare his flock, to understand his message, or to baptize people, to prepare them.
Right. So, and that was one of the prophecies fulfilled from, I think it was either Micah or Isaiah, or both.
I think it was Isaiah.
Isaiah said, "You will hear a voice in the wilderness," where John did preach a lot in the wilderness next to Jordan. So
it was also in their dress, which was interesting, because they say dressed, like the Bible doesn't The Bible doesn't spend a ton of time describing what people wear. So when they do, like, pay attention. But yeah, I mean, was that Ezekiel?
Ezekiel.
No. Who is it that he compared him to?
Oh, yeah.
Is it Ezekiel?
They compared him to the Old Testament, basically, because of how he dressed. But I don't remember if it was Ezekiel or not.
Yeah, I don't remember either. It's going to bug me now, though. My foot's asleep again. And then Sarah, the Holy Spirit descended on him, physical appearance like a dove. That ain't it. 40 days. Oh, side note. Chapter 4, I wrote a note next to it that someone should tell Ethan this because it says, so it's chapter 4, verse 4. But Jesus answered him, "It is written, man must not live on bread alone." I was like, can we like write that over, Ethan? Because like that kid lives on nothing but white bread, white pasta,
carbs,
rice, nothing on it, just plain old bread. I know that that's not exactly what that means, but I just thought that was funny. Yeah, I don't remember. Elijah. Was it Elijah?
No, Elijah.
No,
that's...
There's too many names in the Bible. Darn it. Where did I read it? Well, anyway, there was something about the clothes that he wore. It was like because he wore like a belt and he wore camel fur, which is similar to whoever that person is that I can't remember in the Old Testament.
Right. So
it was a prophecy.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what we talked about before too. Is everything in the Bible has a every word has a purpose, and like nothing is wasted space, and it's something like that, or the dress. Whereas normally you might skim over it or read over it and be like, oh, he dressed like that, but why? And then until you do more research, then you find out it was very deliberate. That's part of the prophecy, and so. But I thought that was kind of cool. Like,
I agree. I think it's funny because like one of the ladies at church was giving me a hard time because she's like, if you're still questioning how you feel, why does your Bible look like this? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, the way you speak, she's like, you know more about the Bible stories than I do. And I'm like, well, because I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to find the answers. You got an answer for me? And she's like, no. But I think it's interesting that like they don't have any, they have very little knowledge of what's actually in the Bible. A lot of Christians do. Me being one of them when I was younger, I had no idea some of these stories that are in here and what they all mean and dissecting the little parts and pieces of them. There is so much information here. There's so much to learn. And there's so many nuanced things that you, like you just said, you can read through a chapter and then like you get one thing from it, but somebody else reads it with like more experience and knowledge and they get this whole other thing to it. And you're like, wow, I didn't even look at it that way. I just read right on past that part. Like, it's just, it's wild to me. I find it very interesting, all of the things that are in here and like learning all the different nuances and stuff. But
I think, and I love history, but like
I don't.
To get into the history of how they did things, right? The Greek, the Hebrew, like it brings so much more meaning to what you're reading. Because growing up, there wasn't like a class where you could, the pastor knew, maybe not knew at all, but, they practiced whatever it was. And, you kind of hear the same 10 Bible stories over and over, and those are what stick out, but you don't really get like deep down as to why. I think for me, like my mind's still blown from when Pastor preached about the Christmas when Jesus was born. Like that's even today. I can't talk, y'all.
Even today.
Even to this day.
Even to this day.
Yeah, it blows my mind. Like how deliberate everything was from the stone to the cloth, like, and how many times has anybody heard that story? Like, hundreds of times.
So I guess that was something that really got me too, is the story of the mustard seed. So you had the parable of the sower explained. That is separate to, mine comes right after that. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, the parable of the sower, because you said you found that one interesting. Before I get into my story.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just the parable of the sower.
Oh, all right.
Well, no, it talks about
Thrilling.
four different types, and Jesus spoke in parables to help people understand, his message, and so there's there's four different types of soil. So the one is, when seed falls on the path, like the birds pick it up, and usually that's represented by people who don't understand or whose hearts are hardened, and the birds represent like the enemy or the devil picking up the seeds, so they don't even have a chance to hear it. And then the stony ground was like the seeds fall on the stony ground in between the cracks, and they might sprout really quickly, but they die out really quickly too. So
Thought it was powerful, the word that like they have no roots.
yeah,
Ooh,
they
dang.
have no roots. So it's like they have interest and they get joy right away, but they're not able to build that relationship with God, so they have no roots, so they wither away.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was like the thorns.
Mm-hmm.
So that would represent someone who receives the gospel, but the idols, they're suffocated by other idols, whether it be money or maybe your job or something else not according to the scripture. And then of course the last one is the good soil. So accepts the teaching, allows to grow, takes root, is fruitful. So I mean that's true today. All of these stand true to this day. I mean, I think there's people that hit every single one of these. So,
I hope to not be the one that has no roots, because it's a excuse me. I don't know. When I read that though, that was kind of what I like striked me like ouch, because I am excited to read it and learn about it, but like I haven't really made a decision one way or another on where I'm going with it. So I'm like, I hope I don't have roots and fall over.
I think that's hard for anybody. Even that's one thing that I fear for myself is I don't want to lose that hunger or that wantingness. And during the week it's hard. I don't pray as much as I should, and I don't read my Bible as much as I should. But during the day, I think I try to take little breaks, and if I'm getting overwhelmed or if I remember something, like I might pray for something really quick, like I don't know, I just kind of like I try to touch on things during the week, or take a moment to talk to God. But I don't really, other than like Tuesdays and Sundays, like my Bible stays closed for the most part. I think for me it does help listening to the music, because I do get joy from it, and it helps me kind of stay centered, and I don't know, I kind of cling on to that for now, and hopefully as we continue, I'll start to be involved in those things a little more, because we got men's group ending here in a couple weeks, so they're not going to do anything for the summer. So the only community we're going to rely on is coming to church.
But I will say today was good, like going to church, because normally we do the class at 9 in the morning, and I don't have an issue with that class, but I do think it's kind of nice to get into church early and be able to like just talk to people that you're sitting near and different people that you may have seen throughout the week or you see at your Bible studies or whatever the case may be. And when you come in after that other class, like you end up having to sit in the way back because there's no seats left, and then you don't even know who's up there. So
Well, and you don't get to talk because they're trying to rush in.
yeah.
You know, that's what I was telling everybody. I was like, we don't usually get here this early because you have the class, which is fine. But sometimes it goes a little over because you're chatting up there and you're getting to know the people in the class. And but then when you come back down to the service, you're scrambling trying to find a seat. And it's just kind of like, and then service is starting and you don't really get to fellowship. And then you kind of want to leave so you're not, boxed in.
Yeah.
So you try because you got to go get the kid from the kids club, and it's a whole thing, and you don't really fellowship
Right.
like you would maybe like we did today.
Yeah, but that was kind of nice. Met me a new friend, Patty. She was nice. And hey, we're in women's class together and we didn't even know it because there's so many women in there. So maybe we'll make an effort to say hi to each other on Tuesday.
Maybe.
I look forward to it. She's a chatty Kathy.
I know one of those.
A chatty Patty. I need a drink. I need water in here. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, my story is long per the usual. But, so we had kind of touched on in Mark the demon that Jesus heals, the one that calls himself Legion. And that had been, kind of showed me interest at that time. What I didn't realize until I was doing the Luke study and I read through all of the book of Luke is that there's kind of more to that story before it. So in Mark, there's also the story of the parable of the mustard seed. That's in Mark and it's in Matthew. But what they don't tell you is that that's actually the parable that Jesus gives his disciples right before this issue with Legion happens. And how that happens. See, those are the things that like you don't know unless you're like learning from someone who does know. But I just find it really interesting because I read all the way through everything and I would have never in a million years made that correlation because it's in a completely separate book. So you don't even realize that that's like over here. So anyways, the story of the mustard seed, if you're not familiar, very briefly, is that you plant the mustard seed and the mustard seed grows up and it creates branches and it becomes this very large tree that gives home or refuge to, the animals, the birds, the people below on the ground, all of that. And so Jesus doesn't just tell his disciples this parable. He then shows them what that means. And he says, here, let's go across the sea. And like, that's all it says. It's like, then they sailed to the region of the Gerasenes. I don't know how to say that, which is opposite Galilee. So that's the whole thing. You don't know anything about what that region is. It doesn't explain to you the geography and the history of that. But the geography and the reality of that is Jews did not travel across the sea to the other side. I think that was the western side. I might get that confused. One was the east, one was the west. One was bad, one was good. So the side, they considered it like Vegas City or like the city of darkness. And so for Jesus to take all of his disciples on the boat over to this city of darkness, they were like, And then it says that he gets there and it says that he gets off the boat. It doesn't say that the disciples get off the boat. And I liked the woman telling the story because she's like, I envision all of his disciples being like, we're not getting out of the boat. We're not going over there. And then it says immediately he got off the boat and was met with this demon, Legion. And the part of the story that I found interesting before was that he put those demons that were inside this person into the pigs, and the pigs ran over the side of the mountain.
Yeah.
Well, the part he was trying to show with that whole story is that man was healed of everything. And then he asked Jesus if he could go back with the disciples across the sea. And Jesus said no. He said, I want you to go share the good word to your family. And so he left and he spread the message of Jesus and what he could do and how he could heal, which is weird because Jesus doesn't ask or tell people very often to go share the good news or to share what was done for them.
Right.
But he did specifically ask this guy to go and share that information. So they left, they went back home, and then they ended up coming back down the road, and that's not really talked about in here, but I know that because she was telling me the story. But when they come back the next time, that man created 4,000 new people that met Jesus and his disciples in their boats when they came across. And that was his point of the mustard seed. He didn't just talk about the mustard seed, but he talked about how he went and cured this man, and he was essentially a mustard seed who went out and created 4,000 new people who are followers of Christ. And I was like, the way that the Bible's able to or the stories are able to be put together like that, like I don't even read that when I read that. So like, how did somebody write that so I'd read that hundreds of years later and be like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense, all that together? I don't know. Mind blown, but cool story. So hopefully I didn't tell that horribly and it all made sense.
Well, that was better than me telling my parable of the sower. So good job.
Thanks. I kind of jacked it from that lady who tells that story. Okay. So I mean, she did a much better job. I mean, she was like in Israel and she's got like the Sea of Galilee behind her while she's talking, and it's way more interesting. If I can find the video link, I'll put it in the description if you guys want to see the whole lesson. It's Luke and the land, and it's pretty cool because, excuse me, I've never been to Israel. You ever been to Israel? No. So actually a lot of my friends have been to Israel, but she walks the whole thing in Luke and the land at the different points in Israel where Jesus would have been, like the Sea of Galilee, and where he could have possibly been standing and talking and just, to his disciples, or where he could have found the guys on the shore, or where he used to go up into the mountains and pray. And she talks from this huge cliff and like looks over the sea, and it's really pretty. And maybe it's a lake.
I think it's a lake.
It's a lake, yeah. She looks over the lake, and then she goes into some temples and so it's just like you get to see this picture of Israel in all these different places. It's cool. I want to go to Israel, but I don't know what the political. Yeah, I don't feel like now is a good time to visit.
Yeah, I'd probably wait on that.
I don't really know I mean, they say it's still safe to visit, but like, I'm good right now. Like, there's YouTube videos.
Yeah, it's interesting because they were actually talking about that in one of our men's group. One of the guys had actually I think he was part of a mission or helping out or something like that, but he was able to see like the whole area, and he said it was pretty. You can read about it all you want, but to actually be there and experience it, like it's a whole different level of astonishment, I guess. So
yeah, I think it would be cool to go one day, and maybe when all of the world politics aren't so crazy, we can do that, but I don't know about now. The other thing I found interesting is in chapter 6 it talks about the 12 apostles, and I think I just highlighted the one thing that was interesting to me is that they call Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. Like, poor Judas, always a traitor. Like,
right.
I mean, everybody else gets forgiveness, but not Judas. Judas does not get the forgiveness because he betrayed Jesus. And it just led me to do a little bit more research on him. Like, it doesn't actually say anywhere in the Bible, but like always when his name is mentioned, he's mentioned as Judas the traitor. Even when he was doing good works, like he's still Judas the traitor or the future traitor. Like, ouch. But it doesn't say anywhere that he was ever like forgiven, because like Jesus does come back and he speaks to Peter and he makes peace with him after he denied him before he was crucified. But he didn't get an opportunity to do that with Judas because Judas committed suicide.
Yeah.
So on that note, like, doesn't seem that Judas ever received forgiveness after giving up his whole life and following Jesus and being one of the 12 apostles and then betraying him. Like, it didn't matter, I don't think. I mean, I don't know. I'm not God. None of us really know, but I mean, it seems like he never made peace with it. Mm-hmm. And then he killed himself. So that doesn't help either.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what happened to Judas after, but
nobody does. He hung himself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not usually good, but maybe I give him enough time to ask for forgiveness, but I don't believe Jesus was crucified yet, so.
No, it was almost like immediately after.
Like right after he.
Then he tried to give the money back and.
Well, you done did it, Judas. You will forever be a traitor.
Mm-hmm.
Seems kind of sad, but I guess it is what it is. That's really all I had. I don't really have much else. Like I said, Luke was a little dry the first 8 chapters. I mean, not necessarily dry, but like a lot of it was information that we've already read in Mark.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not that stupid word,
theologian.
I'm not that. So to dissect it further, I wouldn't know what to do or where to go. I'd have to take a class on it to get in. And actually, I am taking a class on Luke. But like, I'm still like, Anyway, so
yeah.
There were little bits that I picked out, but other than that, I got nothing.
Yeah, same. I mean, there was where he healed the man with leprosy, and that was actually interesting because when I started doing more research on it, there was like the process. So like Jesus sent him to go back to the Pharisee or to the priest to get inspected. So there's this whole process of when they become clean. Like, there's a lot of reading, and I couldn't do it justice. I'd have to like actually read it to you. Yeah, because
I'm confused right now. What do you mean? There's a whole process they had to go to get clean?
No, after they get clean, so they have to be in the sick,
the lepers.
Yeah. So
when do they get clean?
When Jesus healed them.
Oh, then they had to go through something else?
Yeah, like they have to go get inspected. Well, I don't think it goes over like the whole process, but when I was reading through it, it's a lot. Like they have to get it to be overseen by like 4 days. They need to get like 2 doves and that are unblemished, kill one, dip the other one in the blood, set it free, then get 2 lambs. It's
what?
Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Where did you read that?
Well, it wasn't in the Bible.
Well, then is it true?
No, but I mean, it wasn't, that bit of the process wasn't in the Bible. He told this man to go and be seen by the priest, so that way, but when you read about that process, it's a long process. I would actually have to read it because I'm not the best storyteller, so.
But then Jesus reached out and touched him and said he made him clean. Mm-hmm. And immediately the leprosy left him.
Right.
But then he had to go through something else?
With the priests. So Jesus told him to go.
Oh, but go and show yourself to the priest and offer what Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them.
So, yeah, not just that. It's like when you read it in those times, what they had to do for that, I don't know if it was specific for that condition, mm-hmm. or if it was just for anybody who was sick. But yeah, it's a whole thing. Mm. It's crazy. I was just like, wow, that's kind of intense. Like, but that would be something to maybe get into. I don't remember the whole thing, but.
Well, that's a shame.
Maybe next time I'll
be prepared.
I'll read it. Like it's a lot of information. So.
Okay.
But it's pretty cool.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So we were gonna do, or we've been talking about, and I'm not sure when we'll start it, but I had bought a book at the bookstore called it's sold like a gajillion copies. I've heard of it before, but I know what's the name of it? Purpose Driven Life. So we had well, I bought the book Purpose Driven Life, and then I read like the intro to it, and it says to do that with a partner, to read the book with a partner, to have somebody that like holds you accountable just like you would for a workout partner, but also to like have somebody to bounce ideas off of. And there's like question points at the end to like have discussion about. So I went out and bought Andrew a Purpose Driven Life as well, and he loves reading so much. So much.
I love words.
So many words. So him and I are going to read that together. We may do that like a separate little thing. But if you would like to read A Purpose Driven Life with us, we will let you know when the date to do that is. You can join in on our discussions if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot. Because like you said, Luke covers a lot of what was in Matthew.
Yeah.
So.
It does. It does cover quite a bit. It's all a lot of the same stuff in those books. But I think there's still good information in there. Sorry, I yawned and you yawned.
Yeah.
But I think there's still a lot of interesting information, like, and I think too, diving in and finding that information, like you almost have to look for the hidden meaning in the text a lot of times, and like really take your time to read it. Like sometimes I found myself reading it and then being like, wait, what did that say? And then going back and reading it again and being like, nope, still didn't stick. Go back and read it again, and I'm like, that's kind of interesting. And then I like want to look up where that came from. And so I'll go through and highlight all that stuff in what I'm reading as a majority. And I try to read it all as one story first. And then once I'm done reading all of that, I go back to all the things I highlighted. And that's when I'll kind of like Google search or look for more explanations on each of the things to kind of help me understand a broader picture of like what that means. What are they trying to say? What's Jesus trying to say? Like, because he wrote in parables. And he even said in Luke, which I like, why you gonna, I still, and I read that where he wrote about like, yeah, we write in parables. Is basically what he said. And I was like, that's.
Well, he's like, if you don't understand it or something.
It's not meant for you.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Pretty much.
Yeah, no, that's not it. Oh yeah. So in chapter 8, verse, good Lord, that's small. Verse 9, he says, then his disciples asked him, what does this parable mean? So he said, the secrets of the kingdom of God have been given for you to know. But to the rest it is in parables, so that looking they may not see, and hearing they may not understand. So it's like all the parables he used were intentionally to keep people from immediately understanding without putting in the work almost. If that sounds right. To me, that's how I read that. Like, if you don't really want to know, you're going to read over this and just keep going. But if you read it and you want to know Jesus, or you want to understand him, or you want to have a relationship with him, you're going to dissect the parables that he wrote. Uh-oh.
Computer chime.
Ruh-roh. Anyway, if you want to know him, you're going to spend time learning those parables. And I think understanding the parables that Jesus used or spoke about, and when you can relate those back to the different stories in the Bible, that really helps someone like me who's trying to have faith understand that there's more to this giant book than men who wrote words on a page. Like, there may not be proof out there that Jesus exists, like hard factual proof. I'm never going to, be able to touch him, see him, whatever. But there is this Bible, and there are really good stories in here, and those stories couldn't have been just made by anybody. Like, the way that they intersect with each other, the way that they, like, communicate together in the Bible, like, I don't think people were that smart back then. I mean, maybe. But
I don't know. I think they were probably...
They had a lot of time on their hands. Didn't have phones.
Well, but I mean, you got to think like the Bible was written over how many years? by 40 different men, and it's one unified thought. You know, I heard this on a video once, and it was like, you know, you can't even get 20 people to, you know, if you ask 20 people to write about marriage or something, you get 20 different answers. Because you have something like this, it's one consistent thought from beginning to end. You know, how many different continents, how many different or how many years did it take? And you have 40 men. Like, when I think, how many were Jews and one, or
what?
Well, no, I think most of them are Jewish, and then 2 are Gentiles or something like that. Or
for the apostles?
Yeah, no, for who wrote it.
Oh, I don't know. I'd have
Something
to Google
like that. But it's just interesting.
Well, it is interesting, and I think, you know, the whole idea of why we started Resurrecting Faith is because, you know, the big lingering question for me is, where does faith come from and where do you find it? And I didn't know the answer, and I still don't know the answer, and maybe it's different for everybody, but, well, I'm sure it is different for everybody. But for somebody like me who tends to be more logical and wants, like, hard factual proof, there isn't ever probably going to be. I mean, I know some people say that God comes and talks to them, and maybe he does, and maybe he will, but maybe he won't. And maybe I'm not one of those people that gets that opportunity. And so maybe the only way to find faith and the only way to get there is to, like, understand the person that you're trying to believe in by reading the Bible, by learning the stories, by understanding how well written this is, by understanding how unlikely these stories intertwining the way that they do and being so just like all one, like how that could happen, how 4 different people can write Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and all have seen slightly different but essentially the same thing. Like, and written at totally different times too, you know. So I don't know, I think if you're looking for faith, or if you haven't found faith, or you're wondering where it comes from and you have no idea where to start, a good place to start is reading your Bible. I mean, it's community. It's definitely going to church. Whether you're there or not, you don't have to be. You know, you don't have to have a relationship with Jesus to go to church. You can just go and start a community and talk to people and, you know, be like me and invite people to church, even though I don't know what I'm thinking or doing right now. And then just pick up your Bible and start learning, because that's the only way you're going to, you know, nobody can tell you anything. If you're like me, you're stubborn and nobody can tell you nothing. So I have to learn it myself. Andrew loves that about me. He loves how much he can tell me something and then I look it up online and find it out myself. And I'm like, guess what? I have the answer now. It's my favorite, or your favorite thing about me, right?
It sure is.
Not so much. Sorry, honey. But anyway, I think that's helping me somewhere along this journey. But that's all I got.
Yeah, I don't have
You
much
did that.
else. Yeah.
Sorry. We're old.
See, there you go. There needs to be like a day between Sunday and Monday. Like Flurb's Day or something.
A Flurb's Day? What's a Flurb Day?
I don't know. You just wake up and you're like, Flurbs. Like, you need an extra day. We
were off Friday. We had an extra day this weekend.
It's not in between Sunday and Monday. That day's already established. Need another one, like, where nothing is open. Like, nothing.
Well, that's Sunday. That's the day of rest.
No,
that's
there's still people working.
Yeah, I agree.
But
it's supposed to be Sunday, but it didn't work out.
No.
Anyway, have a great week, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Oh, pinch poking.
Oh, no. We're corny.